Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this, which is our 16th Virtual Sea Angling Forum of 2021. And this is, in fact, our last Sea Angling Forum of 2021. And to finish off the year, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Kieran Hyder from Cefas and Dr. Adam Brown from Substance, who will be talking to us this evening about the Sea Angling Diary project and how we'd like as many anglers as possible to get involved. For those people who don't know me or haven't seen me before on this forum, I'm Stuart Singleton White. I am the head of campaigns at the Angling Trust, which means I cover all issues from a policy and campaigning sense from both freshwater and marine. And working in the background with me this evening is Nevin Hunter, who is our marine coordinator, and Hannah Rudd, who is our policy and advocacy manager. Now, before I hand over to Kieran and Adam, I'm just going to explain how the evening's going to run. We're using the Teams webinar feature this evening, which will hopefully help to make it more interactive as we get into the question and answer sessions later on. The best way to handle questions is if you're thinking of questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box, which you can put on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're not sure where it is, look at the speech sort of bubble icon at the top of the screen and just click on that and it'll open the chat box. When it comes to the question and answer session, which will be at the end of Kieran and Adam's presentation, Hannah will go through the questions we've had in the chat box. If any of the questioners want to then ask a follow-up question, if they want to raise their hand, which you can do by, again, clicking on the button of the smiley face with the hand, we can open the floor to you to ask a further question. And equally, if anybody thinks of questions they want to ask personally this evening, please also raise your hand and we can open the floor up to other questions once we've dealt with the ones that are put into the chat box. And then finally, just to mention the recording is, this evening's presentation is being recorded. This is because we put all of our sea angling forums on our website, so people can either come and look at them a second time, or people who haven't been here this evening are able to view them as well and haven't missed the opportunity to hearing what our speakers have to say. But if you don't want to be involved in any way in that recording, then if you just keep your microphone on mute and your video camera off, you won't be in any way involved in the recording. So when the presentation is over, I will just come back on screen to close the evening. But that's enough for me. You're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to Kieran and Adam. So without further ado, I shall hand over to, I don't know who's going first. Is it Kieran? Are you first? Kieran.
Yes, it's me. Thank you.
Kieran,
thank you,
welcome.
Stuart, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to come and talk at this. I think it's great to be able to share some of the information that we've been collecting for a number of years with others within the angling community. So first of all, I should introduce myself and Adam. My name's Kieran Hyder. I work for the Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science in the UK. We're part of the UK government, and we do all of the kind of data collection and science and evidence that's needed. We collect all of that to support policy. And myself and Adam have been leading on the collection of sea angling data. We've been working on sea angling probably for about 10 years, and Adam's even longer than that, I think up to 15. We're both keen anglers as well, and both of us fish mainly in freshwater, but we work on the sea, and that's how we separate our job from our hobby. So the idea of what we're going to talk about today is about the Sea Angling Diary project. How can we get data, get information about sea angling across the UK? So the things that we're going to talk about today is we're going to try and address these 5 questions. The first of them is, why is recreational fishing important? Why do we care about it? Then why do we need data on sea angling? And then we'll go on to talk about how we collect data across the UK. What have we found from what we've been doing already? What do we know about sea angling in the UK? And how can you guys, if you want to, get involved in this very large citizen science project that we're using to collect data? So why is recreational fishing important? Well, there's a number of reasons why recreational fishing is important. It's a very diverse hobby with lots and lots of people fishing with lots of different gears. I know the focus of the Angling Trust is around angling, but we also are interested in anyone that's fishing with pots, with nets, and traps, and so on and so forth. And it's often unregulated. It's really socially and economically important, but it can impact on the environment. And the table on the right is some work that we've done at a European level, looking at kind of the numbers of anglers in across Europe. We reckon there's around 9 million people that have been angling across Europe, which is about 1.6% of the people in Europe. They fish for about 78 million days. About 10 days per angler. They spend around 5.89 billion, which is about 679 euros per angler, and it creates a total economic impact of 10.5 billion and supports almost 100,000 jobs across Europe. And this kind of tells you why recreational fisheries, marine recreational fisheries in Europe in general are important. But you can have an impact on the environment and stocks. And some work that we've done has shown that some angling for the stocks that we have data could be between 2 and 43% of the total take. And there can be some other issues around kind of live bait, potentially introduction to the environment and lead loss. There's obviously a lot of conflict between the angling sector and commercials, and also conservation. So there are things which bring you into conflict with other sectors and other people that have an interest in the marine environment. But generally, the benefits and the impacts of angling are not really well recognised, and it's not embedded, or it hasn't been in the past, in marine governance. So why do we need data on sea angling? Well, there are a number of different ways. I mean, everyone tends to think about it as a fisheries issue. So we think about kind of the stocks that we have and how we can sustainably manage our fisheries as we move forwards. But there are also things around biodiversity. I'm sure that you have kind of seen things around the discussions around angel sharks, for example, that have been presented before, and poor beagles, but also kind of the broader sets of policy that deal with biodiversity, things like marine protected areas. So we need to understand how anglers interact with not just fisheries, but also the biodiversity. One of the most common issues when I first started doing this work, which I was asked about, was that I would get people who were planning to do some kind of development. They come in to ask me whether I could tell them how many sea anglers were fishing in a particular area, and how that might impact on the planning side of things. So, you know, there are kind of ways that sea angling impacts on the marine spatial planning. And last but not least is on physical health and well-being. It's now commonly called the blue gym, and that is a really big kind of growth area, if you like, in terms of especially in the times of COVID, around people's mental health and their physical health, and how important that is for the society as a whole. So the types of data we need is that we need biological, social, economic data for governments, but not just for government, but also for the angling sector to be able to set their own policies and set direction. And this is really important in the current climate, and for two reasons. One is the Fisheries Act, which was introduced in 2020, which basically for the first time has really embedded recreational sea angling in the fisheries management process, and also includes aspects of funding for the development of sea angling. So it's a real big step forwards. And the other part is the Marine and Coastal Access Act, which essentially says that all the needs of all users of the marine environment need to be balanced when we're making decisions about them. So that's why we need data. So how do we go about getting it? Well, this is where the sea angling diary comes in. And this is a very simple schematic of what we do within the sea angling diary. So the first thing that we do is we have two kind of sets of survey. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to work out how many anglers there are in the UK and what are their characteristics. Where are they based? How old are they? How often do they fish? How skilled and experienced are they? And we get, this is known as the effort, and we get this from a face-to-face survey that we've done in the past, pre-COVID, of 12,000 people across the UK, where we go and we ask them questions about water sports participation in general, but we also include information about questions about sea angling. The second part of this that we need to understand is what are individual anglers catching or spending on their sport? And this is where the sea angling diary comes in. And here we have volunteer sea anglers, citizen scientists, who come in and they tell us what they catch and all about their sessions throughout the year. And in addition, we do generally single surveys where we find out about how much they've spent across the year. And then we can use those two things together to estimate the total catch or expenditure. And the way that we do that is we don't just multiply the two numbers together. We think about, we match the characteristics of the diarist with the characteristics of the angling population, and we use those to generate a total catch and spend. So I'm now going to pass over to Adam, who's going to talk more about the diary panel approach.
Unmute myself, so you might be able to hear me. Thanks, Kieran. I should probably just introduce myself. I'm Head of Research at Substance, and we do a lot of research on sport and activity, but I've had a particular focus on angling work, including all this work around sea angling, but also the National Angling Strategy and other projects over the years. The approach we've taken with the diary panel is, the problem is, with, as you know, with sea angling, is that there isn't a database, there isn't a license system, so there isn't a group of people that you can go to and sample in that you might do in a normal way if you were sampling participants in football clubs, for instance. So what we need to do is go out there and find people who are willing to give us data in quite detailed form over the years. So the first part of that we do is a whole recruitment process, and that's what we're doing at the moment for next year, and what we'll talk about a little bit later in this presentation. And we do that through working with our partner organisations who support the projects, including this year the Angling Trust, who will get information about the project out through their contacts and to their members and so on. We do a lot of recruitment work ourselves in terms of contacting charter boats and charter skippers, tackle shops, angling clubs, a wide range of kind of federations and organisations linked to the marine environment to get information out there about the project. And we typically do that through a website that we've set up at seaangling.org, and then people who are interested in the project go to that site, and what they do is they click on a link and they get a survey, a sign-up survey, which will give them access to the diary projects and the diary system. That survey asks some really basic questions about their participation levels, whether they intend to fish in the sea in the coming year, and whether they're willing to provide data using the app and the online tool. And once that's validated, we provide them with information about how to record catches, which I'll come back to in a second. And they use either a mobile app, which we've developed, or an online tool, a web-based tool, and they record information about their sessions, where they fished, when they fished, the methods they've used, and what the results of that were, as well as their catches. And they're able to record any of the species that are caught around the coast in the UK, the length of the fish, and the numbers that they've kept and returned. And it's really important that we have both kept and returned, because that's been some of the most valuable information that's come through to understand release rates of lots of species. Through the year, we engage with the diarists through a whole range of means, through newsletters and emails, social media. We sometimes do quick one-off text polls to people just to find out whether they fished in the month or not. And all of that data is then brought together at the end of the year and used for analysis. There's a couple of things about it that are really important to stress. One is that for lots of the year, lots of months in the year, people don't necessarily fish in the sea. Knowing when people do and don't fish is important as anything else. And it's also important to know that when people have fished and they've not caught fish. So we do spend a lot of time communicating with diarists to make sure we get a fuller picture of what they've done throughout the year, not just when they've gone fishing. And anybody who's been involved with the diary project will recognise that as a message we try to get out to. The strength of this is built on the numbers of people that we get involved. And we started in 2016 with about just under 500 people, and we've gone through to over 2,300 in the current year. If you want to go on to the next slide, Kieran. So when people sign up to the project, we send them a catch recording kit. We do a paperless version of this now, as well as a paper version to help the environment. But you get a fish identification guide, which has information on 120 odd species to help people identify particularly some of the lesser known species that they may not know, as well as some really basic information about where you might find them and when. People get a waterproof notebook, because when you're out fishing, you don't want to be writing on normal paper quite often, because it'll just get rotten. Years ago, we did a charter boat survey, and that was a paper-based diary that we sent out, and the state of some of them when they came back really informed the importance of having waterproof notebooks to do this and a tape measure. It should be said that the notebooks are probably, phasing out as people. One of the things we've developed is a mobile app, so people can record information when they're out there on their mobile phones. In terms of recording the data, people have a choice. You can use a website and do it either on your phone or when you come back on your laptop or your desktop using a web interface. And the online system replicates what is on the app almost exactly in terms of the data that's captured and the process you go through. In 2019, we launched a mobile diary app on Apple and Android, and that's been continually developed and improved ever since. So diarists also have the opportunity. The diary app is only available to people who agree to participate in the project, but is one of the real benefits of actually joining the project. Kieran, if you want to go on. On the data system, we ask for two basic pieces of information. One is details about the session that you've had. So what date was it? Where was it? And you have an option of recording that using Google Maps or by recording lat long. We ask about the duration of your session, because that's really important to understand what the total effort is that anglers are putting in. So when you started and for how long you fished. And then you record the fishing site, which is on the shore, on a boat, in kayaks, and on a charter boat, the equipment that's used, and the method that you've used to do that, whether that's lures, baits, a mixture, fly fishing, or whatever. There's some optional features which has really come from diarists to use the system that they wanted to record. So people wanted to record what their target species was on particular sessions, which is also really interesting information for us. Are people catching what they're actually setting out to do? We created an ability for people to share their session information with others. That's totally voluntary, and if you want to share the session, you click the button and it will share that on a shared dashboard that other diarists can use. That's not with the general public, it's just with other diarists. And then there's other information. You record notes about your session or weather and tide information. We now have a feature that using your location and the time, the weather and tide for that particular location is automatically brought into the data recording at the back end, so you can see that once you've completed your data entry. The catch details, as you can see, you record the species that you've caught. If you know the length, and we encourage people where possible to record length, you can record that, and then the number kept and returned at that length. You now have the ability to upload a photograph and an image of the fish that you've caught, and that will be recorded alongside that catch record. The big development this year, which has just come out, is the ability to record a live session. So when you start your fishing session, you can press a button to say record live session. It will start recording automatically the time, but it will also track on a kind of 10-minute interval where you're fishing. And again, this is something that diarists have said they really wanted. That's both for people who fish on the shore and are highly mobile, but also particularly boat anglers who want to track where they fished and where they've caught fish. So you can see on the image on the right there, the green is the start point for this session. Then the two red dots are where fish were caught, and then the blue dot is where the app was turned off at the end. So that's a feature we just introduced, and if you're downloading the app and using it, we'd love your feedback on that, because we're still improving and tweaking that as we go. Kieran, thanks. So just some of the kind of benefits, because we're getting a lot of information from sea anglers about what they're doing and what they're catching, and in return we want to make sure they're getting something out of it. And that's not just the diary pack, the catch recording kit, and the fish ID guide, which is very popular. But if you're one of the first 500 new users of the app in 2021, you'll get a waterproof phone holder, which allows you to continue to use your phone, but it'll protect it from water submersion, which does happen. And I can testify to the effectiveness of it, because I was on a sea kayaking trip in the summer and managed to fall in getting out of it, but the phone was fine when I got out. So really useful bit of kit that you can get if you sign up to the project. We've worked with partners over the years, and in particular Fishing Megastore, on providing tackle vouchers as prize draws. So anyone who signs up to the project, we do a sign-up prize draw at the start of the year, and there's two Fishing Megastore £50 vouchers there, as well as some RLI goodies. And then we do a monthly prize draw every month, where again there's a £50 and a £25 Fishing Megastore. So it's making sure there's an incentive for people to return data each month. If you return data in the month, you'll be entered into the prize draw. Thanks, Kieran. Just in terms of the system itself and what you get out of that, obviously you get a record of what you've done. So there's a fishing session overview that all anglers get of all their own sessions. You can use that to update details if it's got missing data, add photos if you haven't added one at the time. You can go in and review what you did, see what the weather and tide conditions were when you were catching that. You can filter those sessions by whatever you want to filter, by method, by location, or whatever. You get a gallery of all the pictures that you've added to, so you can build up a gallery of photographs of your catches. And you get a personal dashboard, and that gives you a record of all the activity that you've done. You get a map based interface to see all the sessions you've recorded. This is my test site, I think you're seeing there, and I wish I'd done all those sessions in the north of Scotland. Sadly, some of them are made up for the purposes of testing the system. And at the end of the year, you get a PDF annual report of what you've done in the year, which you can just download from the system every year. Kieran. As I mentioned before, we introduced the ability to share information on the system website. This was something that we got through. We do feedback surveys every so often with diarists to find out how the system is and what they want. And this was one of the things people wanted to see, what other people were doing. But there are real issues with doing that, because we don't want to give away people's particular locations or where they've had particular catches in any fine detail. And so we do a number of things to protect data that's shared. One of which is we apply what's called a jitter to the lat long location. So it moves it randomly away from the location that's been recorded by the diarist. And we also don't put a pinpoint of where that is. We put a kind of 5 kilometre area around it. So you'll see, in contrast to the personal diary, where there's individual points located, this has much broader points around where fish have been caught. I should also say that when you record your session initially, it's up to you how accurate you want to be in terms of where the location is. For us, we're interested in the ICES area that you're fishing in ultimately. So we're not that interested in whether it was off that particular promontory or that particular wreck that you were fishing at. So if you don't want to record very precise information, you don't have to. That said, none of that is shared anyway. So we never divulge the locations of particular catches. The only way that's shared is through this shared dashboard, and we apply those mechanisms to make sure that nobody's very precise information is recorded. And there's further information about how we do that and what we do to protect your data on the website. Thanks, Kieran. Just to round up this then, so having set all that up since 2016, we've had over 5,000 sea anglers providing data. As I said, that's gone up from 500 in 2016 to over 2,300 this year. In that time, they've recorded 48,000 sessions, 362,000 catches, 260,000, 16,000 hours of activity. So there's a huge amount of data that's come in through the diary, and we're really, really grateful to all the diaries to provide that, because without it, we don't have a project, we don't have anything to analyse. Those figures will have gone up because that was as of the end of October, so they'll be a little bit higher now, I think. The beauty of having a panel of sea anglers as well is that you can run individual surveys with those people at periodic intervals. We've done 3 surveys to inform our understanding of the economic impact of sea angling. In those, we asked people about their trip expenditure as well as their big item expenditure in the year. And we just finished one of those with a record number of responses earlier this year. We're also able to dig into some of the other benefits of sea angling. So we ask people about physical health and activity and their well-being through surveys. And we've actually got a survey that's with diarists at the moment that we're just about to close before the end of the year. And that will provide a lot more really detailed information about how people become active in through sea angling. And as Kieran mentioned earlier, we've run a survey about the impact of COVID last year, and we're due to publish a paper next year about that, about how COVID affected people's participation, whether that's through the imposition of regulations or their own personal circumstances during the pandemic. And that helps us interpret data as well that we're getting in 2020 and 2021, so we understand some of those differences. A lot of this information has been published, so the 1617 and 1819 reports are available on the gov.uk website. You can link to those through the project website as well if you want to read those. 2020's report will be published early in 2022. We're just rounding up the writing of that now, and then it'll be going for review before publication. And we'll then be publishing the results from 2021, including updated economic impact data and that physical activity and well-being data later in 2022. So Kieran, if you want to talk through about some of the results so far from some of this work. You're on mute.
Sorry, I've got a mute button on my headphone. I've done my you're on mute for the day now. I apologise, everyone. So yes, thank you, Adam. I'm going to start just to summarise some of the things that we've learned about sea angling from the project so far since 2016. So the first thing we've learned is a bit more about sea angling participation. So who's fishing, where they're fishing, what their characteristics are, and how often they're fishing. So what you can see from the graph on the left-hand side is the numbers of sea anglers across the UK, and then the other bars are split by the countries. And you can see since 2016, I think we've had on average about 750,000 people in the UK that have been sea angling in the last year. The majority of those are from England, but about the same numbers, around the 60 to 70,000 from Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. And they fished from kayaks, from private boats, charter boats and the shore for around between 6 and 7 million days each year. So quite a lot of effort going on. We can also say something about the sea angling catches. And these are catches at a very broad level. We've got the total number of fish on the left-hand side that are retained and released, with the retention being somewhere in the region of 10 million and the release somewhere in the region of between 30 to 40 million fish. And the release rates are generally between kind of 75 and 80% as a whole. And we've got that information for around 70 species, and the diarists have recorded up to 100 species that are being caught each year. On the right-hand side of this picture, you can see the composition of the catches that are recorded and that we've raised to the population. So the most commonly caught fish are mackerel and whiting, and then dogfish, bass, cod, and then into some flatfish, some pollock, and then there's a big blob of other fish, which are some other fish that, the other 100 species that are, or the remaining 90 or so species that are kind of recorded in the diary. So that shows you that the kind of catches can be important as well. And we've also kind of looked quite a lot, as Adam said, about the benefits. And this is really important from a government perspective. It's demonstrating how important sea angling is, both economically and socially. And this is the work that we did in 2016 and 2017 on the right-hand side, which shows that anglers spent over £1 billion each year. And if once you can run that through you can look at the knock-on effect of that spend, the economy, and you get a total economic impact of between 1.5 and almost £2 billion, supporting somewhere in the region of 15,000 jobs, and with a gross value added, and that's the amount that sticks to the economy, of around 700 to 800 million. So that kind of shows you how important it is from an economic perspective in terms of the expenditure and the jobs. We've also, as Adam said, started to think about the individual benefits, and those are the physical health and well-being, how it affects your kind of, how you feel as a person. And then there are also more broad societal benefits that we've noted, things like rehabilitation, litter cleans, and many other things like that. So, as Adam said, the benefit of having a panel is being able to ask about things, not just the economics, but also things like COVID. And this is something that we did in 2020. We looked at the impact of COVID on sea angling, and what you can see on the right-hand side is the results from the diary panel. So the black squares are 2020, and the round circles are 2019. So you can see you've got the period of lockdowns in there, with red being full lockdown, the yellows being the regional restrictions, and the greens being open. So you can see that from our diary panel that the number of sessions crashed during lockdown, and then it picked back up through the partial restrictions, getting up to about the same level when the fishery was open, and then dropping below again. But what you can see that's really interesting from the graph below is that you get the same kind of drop in April in terms of the sessions per diarist, but then maybe during the open period, people started going fishing more, and maybe because of the way that they were working. So you can see that there has been an impact of COVID on the way that people are fishing. And in addition to that, we also asked people about what they'd seen, and they'd fished less generally in terms of our diarists because of the restrictions and their fears about COVID for their own health. It had had impact on them because they'd been less active, and this was especially true for people that had health concerns, some kind of physical disabilities and mental health issues. And they'd also spent less on their hobby. So COVID has had quite a large impact potentially on sea angling, and that's something that we can show from the work that we've done. So the last thing I was going to talk about is that we can collect all of this data, but there are always issues with the quality of the data, and people ask us how we can know, you haven't talked to me about what I've caught, so how can you know how much people are fishing? Well, this is a survey. It's like all surveys, exit poll surveys that you see for general elections. So we need to keep working on the quality. So we've done quite a lot to think about any biases that we might have, things that might allow us or might drive us in to make the wrong conclusions. So we've done some validation work. We've looked at angler experience, we've updated our methods, and we've thought about the impacts of COVID. In future, we'd like to make some other improvements. We'd like to do a large side-by-side comparison of what comes out of our diary panel against when we go and ask people that are fishing at the seaside, essentially. And we'd like to be able to get more accurate information on our angling population. But the last thing, which is really important to improving the quality, is to get as many diarists involved in this as possible. And that's where I'll hand back over to Adam again.
Thanks, Kieran. So what I wanted to sort of finish up doing is just talking about next year, because as Kieran says, the more people we can get involved, the broader spectrum of sea anglers we can get giving us data, the better the results will be, the more accurate the findings will be, and that's going to just help improve the development of sea angling. There's a couple of things to note about the survey in 2022. Up to 2021, it's been a UK-wide project. Because of changes in how in Scotland and Northern Ireland, they're going to collect information about sea anglers. The focus is only on England and Wales in 2022, which is a shame, but is a result of changes elsewhere and completely outside of this project. The other big change this year, one of them, is that the Angling Trust is now supporting the project and has been helping us with the recruitment and the preparation for it for the first time. That's underpinned by a broader agreement that the Angling Trust, ourselves, Cefas and DEFRA have signed about collecting data around sea anglers to improve the information that government has, so decisions that are made about sea angling are better informed. So there's a broader development of how we're going to work together cooperatively to make sure that we get the best possible data, and we address the concerns that are important to angling as well as those that might be important to government. There's also more widespread support this year. So not only the Angling Trust, we also have the Welsh Federation of Sea Anglers who've supported the project since the get-go, as well as the Angling Trades Association. But we also have the Association of IFCAs are now formally supporting the project, the Institute of Fisheries Management, the National Mullet Club, and BASS, the Bass Anglers Sport Fishers Society, are supporting the project. And we're really, really grateful for that kind of broad spectrum of angling and fishery support. And all those organisations are helping us distribute information about the project and getting anglers to sign up. And we look forward to working with the Trust in conjunction with all those other organisations as well. Thanks, Kieran. So what can you do to help? Well, the first thing you can do is sign up. Please go to the website, have a read through. There's an extensive FAQs document there. There's a document about how we protect your data and how you can be sure that the information you record isn't suddenly going to be published in the Angling Times or on the Angling Trust website. We protect people's data. Substance is ISO registered for data security, so we hold it on accredited servers and protect people's information. Everything we do is protected under GDPR, and we're compliant with all of those regulations. But all that information that you might be concerned about, you can get through the website. And if you can't find information there, please drop us a line and ask us questions. You can also encourage people in your club, your organisation, or your angling business, if you're involved in one, distribute our website, the logo, put links on your own websites, include information in your newsletters if you have them, or at your club, encourage the people responsible for that to do so, because the more we can cascade information about the project out through individuals like yourselves and through organisations and clubs and societies you may be involved in, the better. Distribute information about the project. If you have places that you can distribute emails to or display posters, get in touch and we can get those to you so that you can just pass them on or put those up. Please like, comment, retweet social media that we have up. We have a Twitter account and Facebook pages that you can link to, and Instagram. So please, you can access those through the website, but the more you can help distribute information through those, the better. And if you want print material that you can distribute, we do small business cards as well as A4 posters that we can get to you. So please, the email seaanglingdiary@substance.net. You can get in touch with us anytime. We can get anything that will help you publicise the project. We can get that to you. If you happen to write articles or post on forums or write about your angling blogs or whatever, please try the diary, try the app, and give us do a review of the app and the project, and get as much information out as you can. Kieran. So yeah, website, print, social media, they're the kind of three things that we're asking you to look at and distribute if you can yourselves. I should point out the website has a little introductory video as well on the homepage that you can have a look at. And there's all the information I've talked about in terms of what you can get in terms of benefits is on that web page. But I'll re-emphasise again that if there's information or concerns you have or questions you have about the project, obviously ask them tonight. But if not, please just drop us a line and we'd be more than happy to answer them, to direct you to some of the outputs and the reports that have been done before. And there's the list of the social media, the web, and our email address. So yeah, don't be shy. If you've got anything you want to ask, please get in touch. But I just encourage you all to join up and sign up to be on the diary next year, because the more people that are on the diary, the better the data is and the better for sea angling. Thanks, Kieran. So yeah, just to summarise, as Kieran outlined, sea angling is important to society. It's important biologically in terms of what is caught in the sea and what is returned. It's important socially for people's health, well-being and activity. Something that's evidenced on other surveys we've done as well as through the diary project, and it's important economically. But to understand all those things better, we need more data and we need better data, and that will support both decisions made by government about the marine environment as well as the development of the angling sector more broadly. For the first time, there is now funding available through the Fisheries Act provisions for the development of sea angling in particular, and data that we gather through this project is part of a wider picture of data gathering that can help inform that. The diaries run from 2016 to 2021 and provided results on participation, effort, catches and economic impacts, and we're developing more information about all of those in the reports on 2020 and 2021, which will be published very shortly. Sea anglers can provide information and be part of this. They're part of a big citizen science project here, one of the biggest that operates in fishing in the UK that's ever taken place. It's running now for its 6th year, and that gives us some really valuable time series of data. And there are incentives there for people to be involved, but the biggest motivation for most people is they want to contribute data that's going to have a positive impact on the sector and the activity that they love to be involved in, and we all love to be involved in. So the more that you can do to get people involved, sounded like a stuck record, I know, but the more you can help us get people involved in the programme, the better it'll be. Thanks, Kieran.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kieran and Adam, for taking your time this evening to provide that presentation. Really, really useful information there, providing context for the project and all the fantastic reasons why people should sign up for the Sea Angling Diary project, and we're very proud at the Angling Trust to be supporting this project going forward as well. So we really encourage everyone to sign up if possible. So I'm just looking in the chat box, and I can see that I think some people may not have access to it anymore. There could be some technical issues there. So there's no questions there, but I just wanted to invite everyone to put their hand up if they did have a question in the audience, and I can give you the relevant permissions to do so. But whilst we're waiting there, I just had a wider question as well. You were talking about how this data supports policy decisions related to recreational sea angling, but how does that relate to policy decisions maybe that are not taken by DEFRA, for example? So something that's concerning sea anglers at the moment is the JNCC review of protected species. Would this data be fed in there, or would this be completely separate?
You're on mute, Kieran, if you're speaking.
I think you're still on mute, Kieran.
Second time today. Sorry, I've got a button on my headset that I haven't quite mastered yet. It's the new headset for me. So JNCC are an arm's length body, but they're essentially part of the UK government as well. And we make our data freely available to anyone that wants it. It's provided by anglers, and it's provided and paid for by the taxpayer. So it's freely available to all once we've, obviously with in an anonymized form, in a way that doesn't give away anyone's particular locations or stuff like that, but it is available. So we've talked and we have used the data to as part of some of the discussions which have been had around MCZs, for example, and there has been discussion about how we could use it to support biodiversity monitoring as well. So kind of, feeding into some of these questions, these broader questions about the environment. So I think the important thing is to have data on these things. If we have data, then you can say what is happening, and you get a seat at the table. I think that's really, really important to recognize, is that if you don't have anything that says that describes what you're doing and what impacts you're potentially having and what the benefits are, then there's no reason for people to talk to you about it, and there's no reason for you to be included in those discussions about policy. So that's why data is so important in this.
Perfect. Yeah. In many cases, anglers are the only people taking data on certain species, right? So it's really important to give that data and prove that value as a stakeholder. I cannot see anyone's hand up in the audience, so I'm going to take that as you've explained everything perfectly, and no one has questions.
There is a question in the chat actually that I can see. So
okay, yeah, sorry, apologies for that, Robin.
I can do you want me to answer them? I can go at both of them if you want.
Yeah, I was just going to read it out. So can the survey report stats on individual species such as average sizes and catch per unit effort by region?
Yeah, so you can imagine that if we put the results of 100 species up on the slides, you probably lose the will to live. But yes, we do have all of that information on we have distributions of the sizes of fish that are kept and released for about, in terms of numbers, for about 70 species, I think, between 50 and 70, it varies on the year. And then we have the actual total tonnages of those fish caught by year for about another 30 to 40, again, depending on the year. So yeah, we can give you all of those we can provide all of that information. So it's quite a rich data set that we've got here now.
Perfect. And then Peter Neal asks, you mentioned recording 750,000 anglers. Does this mean that you had 750,000 diarists in previous years?
No. So the 750,000 is based on our estimate of the total number of people. Let me get this right. The total number of people aged 16 years or over that have been sea angling at least once in the last year. So it's basically an estimate of the number of adults that have been sea angling in the last year. So that's taken from a survey. This is our National Water Sports Survey, where we go out and we ask 12,000 people what water sports they've been involved in, including sea angling, and then we're able to kind of match that against their characteristics against the population data, and that gives us an estimate of the number of people that sea angle in the UK. It's very similar to what you would do when you see the election going on. You know, they do an exit poll of people as they're leaving the polling station, and then they use that to kind of predict what the outcome of the election will be in different places. So it's very similar. So that's the total number, but we've only ever had a maximum of 2,300 diarists that contribute to the project. So those are the people that are willing to provide data and contribute their catches to us on a monthly basis. Now, we wouldn't necessarily expect we would love all the 750,000 people in the UK to provide data to us. It might provide us something of a logistical challenge in terms of dealing with that. But yeah, we've only ever had a maximum of 2,300, and we use the characteristics of that sample to infer stuff about what is caught by all sea anglers.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. So if I'm not mistaken, I can't see any further questions or any further hands up. So I'm going to bring, but sorry, just as I said that, my comment came through. Peter says, thanks, Kieran. My guess is the 750,000 is on the low side, but I understand how you've captured it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
sorry.
It is difficult because, you know, it's difficult, especially with those people that have maybe gone once in the last year, and you know, and you ask people if they've been sea angling, and they forget that they've been on a mackerel trip somewhere, or they've been out with a mate on a boat and they fished, you know. So I think it is quite difficult to estimate these things. And that's why we've got the error bars around our estimates, because it says, you know, we know it's probably around 750,000, but it might be between kind of 600 and over a million. And
Peter, just to add to that, if you look at the reports from 16 to 19, those estimates of population do vary from 550 to about 900,000. One of the things we've been doing this year is to try and use the series of data across the years to get a more balanced view of that, and that is around 750. So there'll be further information about how we're thinking about the population size in the report that comes out next year.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I can see someone else is typing right now, so I'm just going to give them a few moments to get their question in. Bear with me a moment. I think it was Nevin that was typing, so I don't know whether you've decided.
Yeah, Hannah, if I can just come in there, it was.
Yeah, no worries.
I may have missed it, so I do apologise, but just the age profile of anglers. Do you actually capture that? And I'm sorry if you did say it, and I must admit. And have you seen how that has changed over the years of running the project?
I would say not. Generally, what you'll find is that the most popular kind of category of sea angler is your kind of 50-something white male. From the data that we've got, there are, you know, it tends to be far fewer at a younger age, and it tails off as people get older as well. But the most people that are sea angling are generally between the ages of about mid 30 and 60. That's the kind of, but the most popular category in that is the 50 plus, I would say. You think that's fair, Adam?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it reflects what we get in other surveys as well. So when we did the National Angling Survey in 2018, which was all anglers, not just sea anglers, there was 30% of people who are actually over 60 in that survey. So the age profile is at the older end. That is obviously a concern that everyone's had in terms of angling development over the years. I think one of the things that'd be interesting to look at in the next couple of years is whether through the COVID period, there's some evidence from freshwater that new people came into angling during last year, during 2020. Whether those people who were introduced to that become anglers and the age profile changes, or whether the new money that's coming in for the development of sea angling, so the kind of participation events that the Angling Trust are going to be running, which weren't really funded in previous years, whether that starts to have an effect on the profile of sea anglers as well. But yeah, I'd agree with Kieran that it's the older age groups are probably dominant in terms of sea angling. It should be said that we only deal with people who are 16 plus in both the diary and in the wider water sports population. So we don't have data on young people who go and sea angling. So it might look a bit different if you included, kids who are going out with their parents and so on. And that would be interesting to explore a bit more as well.
It is a big problem for most sports, though, kind of take up and kind of participation in those teenage years. And it's certainly a big challenge for angling. And I know that the Angling Trust are working really hard on this side of things to try and encourage and young people to get into the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kieran and Adam. I can't see any more questions unless I'm wrong for the third time. So I'm going to hand over to Stuart and close the Q&A session now. Thank you both very much for your time.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Kieran and Adam, for excellent presentation. Really interesting data. And I would really just endorse many of the things that you've said. It's really important we get as many anglers as possible supporting the Sea Angling Diary project, providing the data that we need. I mean, we at the Angling Trust are constantly pushing government and others around the importance of recreational sea angling, the contribution it makes economically, the support we provide to the environment, the well-being benefits of it. I mean, only this week, for example, both Hannah and I had a meeting with Victoria Prentice, the Fisheries Minister, to talk to her more about expanding and improving opportunities for the government to fund recreational sea angling, particularly as we look into the next financial year, so after April 2022. And it's a commitment the government have made within the Fisheries Act, but the importance of having the data and the information to back up the arguments that we are making to government on a daily basis, really, on your behalf, is so important to us. So I really would encourage, all of you, if you're not already involved, and as many of your mates and other people you fish with as possible, to get involved with this project, because it really is important. So thanks for a really interesting evening, both Kieran and Adam. And that sort of brings us to the end of this virtual forum this evening. And in fact, it brings us to the end of our virtual forums for 2021. If you'd like to see something particularly covered in our 2022 season, which starts in January, with a Q&A session with Jamie Cook, the Chief Executive of the Angling Trust. I think that's on the 27th of January. Nevin will correct me if I've got that one wrong. But if there's any other topics you want to see, do please let us know. These are your forums, and we want to talk about and we want to discuss and present the things that we know you're interested in. As I mentioned at the beginning, we filmed this. That is so that we will be posting this onto the Angling Trust website in the next sort of few days. But we'll also be sending you all a survey. Again, this is to help us improve these forums, make sure they're relevant to you and your interest as anglers. So Nevin will be sending you all a survey, and do please complete that survey, and return it to us as soon as you can. And if you want to keep in touch with what we're doing, if you don't already, do please come to our website quite regularly. We have both a campaign section, which is full of information about all of the things we're working on behalf of yourselves as anglers. But we also have a C section, absolutely rammed with useful and relevant information. So do keep an eye on that. You don't have to be an Angling Trust member, obviously, to visit our website. Although if you're not, it would be fantastic if you join when you do visit. But the other way you can keep in touch is we also have a monthly sea angling newsletter. And again, you don't have to be a member to receive that. You can sign up for that on our website. So if you don't get our sea angling newsletter, do please sign up, because again, it's full of information about sea angling, things that you're interested in, and also how you can help us at the Angling Trust. So finally, thanks once again to Kieran and to Adam for a really, really interesting evening. Thank you all for bearing with us, and I'll hopefully see as many of you as possible in 2022. Thanks a lot, and bye.